Have you ever been somewhere and you may have been there multiple times, but then you think to yourself, how did this place come to be? Has this always been here? When did it pop up if it wasn't always here? Kind of a weird thing to think of, but I had been going to John's Pass for years, and one day, not too long ago, was at a restaurant called the Friendly Fisherman, which is on the John's Pass dock and has been for decades, and noticed a plaque on the wall before we were seated. The plaque briefly discussed how the pass was created and who it was named after. Personally, that piqued my interest because I had never thought about it. It was something I just assumed. It's a pass that's always been here. The person who decided to found it was named John. Obviously, there's way more to that story than the basic gist I just threw out there. So before we go any further, where exactly is John's Pass located? John's Pass is located on the west coast of Florida, specifically in Pinellas County. If you're not familiar with that, a bigger landmark would be the Tampa Bay area. So it's a little beachside inlet that actually splits Madeira Beach and Treasure Island, Florida. The pass is connected by a drawbridge, and up one side of the pass is the primary attraction, which is the boardwalk, which has restaurants, shops, lots of tourist traps like dolphin sightseeing tours, little pirate cruises, jet ski rentals, anything you could really expect from a seaside town in Florida that primarily makes its income on tourism. But that brings us back to the plaque in the Friendly Fisherman that described how John's Pass was created. This was something I had never thought of. I assumed John's Pass always existed, or it was created by wind, tides, time. Or hey, we could have even dug it out and created the inlet ourselves just for easy access into the intercoastal waterways in Pinellas County. In fact, John's Pass was created by a hurricane all the way back in 1848. This hurricane is referred to as the Great Gale of 1848 because at that time they were not naming the storms. Obviously, it was 1848. There was no satellite or radar. There was no way to track, at least not in our current everyday way of tracking hurricanes. One interesting fact about the Great Gale of 1848 is that it is one of two major hurricanes that have hit the Tampa Bay area in the past 174 years, meaning we have had other hurricanes or tropical storms hit the area, but nothing of such significance that we had major storm surge or major wind damage like we did for the Great Gale of 1848. And then the subsequent storm that occurred in 1921. Now, although there aren't great records from this storm that occurred in 1848, there is speculation that the wind speeds were up to 127 miles per hour, which would put that squarely as a Category 3 hurricane, which is classified as a major hurricane, as well as a 15-foot storm surge that occurred within a 6-hour period while the area was affected. So definitely some parameters that would cause some major topographical changes to the area. In fact, it is said that once the Great Gale moved through, all of the maps of the area were useless because the topography had changed so drastically. Now, if you've ever seen or been to Pinellas County, specifically around the beaches, this should not be a surprise as it is a very flat terrain. There's lots of little inlets, keys, bays. It's beautiful, but it's flat, and if there was some wind or a heavy amount of water, you could easily see how things would change. As mentioned, a man named John Levesque found the pass while he was looking for his typical entry into Boca Ciega Bay. The question then becomes, why did this pass get named John's Pass after John Levesque? Well, at the time, this area was not densely populated as it is today, and John Levesque was, at least historically told, a retired pirate. There wasn't a lot of information that I could find on John Levesque. In fact, the picture you're seeing now is not of John Levesque. It's just a generic old-fashioned pirate picture. What I could find was that John Levesque was a cabin boy on a ship that was invaded by pirates. Given the choice between death and a life of piracy, he chose a life of piracy, and actually ended up climbing the ranks to captaining his own ship. It is said that he never actually hurt anyone, and that he was, I guess, quote-unquote, a kind pirate, who eventually retired to the Tampa Bay area, specifically Pinellas County. Seeing as the population of this area was very small, and that John Levesque had at least some prominence as a pirate and lived in the area, The pass was subsequently named John's Pass. There's also a little myth I came across that stated he had treasure buried, and coincidentally, where he buried it is exactly where John's Pass was created, so splitting Madeira Beach and Treasure Island. So I guess we'll never know, unless the pass really does fill with sand like they say it's going to. These days, topics like the Great Gale of 1848 or John Levesque and his discovery of John's Pass are little-known facts of the area, something I doubt many tourists even are aware of when they walk up and down John's Pass and its boardwalk. One thing that is still present is the pirate influence. There are pirate bars, pirate festivals, even a pirate cruise where they take you out into the Gulf of Mexico while the staff is dressed up as pirates, and I'm pretty sure they give out pirate hats. But it's still an interesting place, and it has a lot of history. It's also very beautiful and a unique little spot in Pinellas County. I know that's just a little quick take on John's Pass and how it was created and how it got its name. But I will say, if you ever find yourself in Florida, specifically Pinellas County, walking down the boardwalk of John's Pass, just remember that that was created by a hurricane and subsequently found by a retired pirate. I don't know. I think that's pretty cool if you ask me.